It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Broadcasting from coast to coast,
city to city, coast to coast.
It's time for the Ryan Hickey Show on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. If it's happening in sports, it's being talked about right here. And here's your host, Ryan Hickey.
Good Monday morning and welcome into the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. It is the Ryan Hickey Show with you right here on a gorgeous but chilly, but still nonetheless the sun is out, so it makes it a little bit better. Gorgeous but chilly Monday morning. Hopefully, wherever you are, you had a great, enjoyable, relaxing, fun, exciting weekend. We are inching our way closer. One more week until the sun is out for longer. The weather is starting to change. This here in New York, it's going to be 50 degrees almost all week. I think we're even going to hit 60 one day. So spring is finally feeling like it's in the air. And I don't know about you, but that definitely increases my mood and makes me a lot happier. So very, very, very excited about that. So hopefully you're feeling as good, as happy as I'm here on this Monday morning. As a reminder, as we always are, coming to you live from the Big Italy Pizzeria Studios, where it's great pizza, hot heroes, and phenomenal dinners. Check out Big Italy Pizzeria in person in Medford, Joe's Pizzeria in Bayshore, classic New York pizza joint also in Bayshore, or online wherever you are at BigItalyPizza.com. So a lot to get into here today. The NBA All-Star Game has come and gone. I thought it was honestly more exciting, more fun than it has been in quite some time. I enjoyed it personally. Not a lot of people I feel like can say the same, so we'll kind of get into that here in a little bit of why the All-Star Game, at least in the NBA, but kind of everywhere, has kind of lost its luster. People just feel like you try to bash it more than try to enjoy it. We'll discuss that. 9:40 Eastern, Keith Smith. We had him on back when the bubble started, maybe even when the playoffs started. So he'll be a friend of the show now that he's coming on for a second time. Very excited to have Keith on at 9:40. What is going on with the Celtics? Going to turn around. The Utah Jazz, a team that's, if you want to say disrespected, not getting maybe the love that they deserve for having the best record in the NBA, 3 All-Stars on their team. People kind of feel like look at the Jazz as almost like, a feel-good story now, but don't really take them seriously. We'll see if we should be taking the Jazz seriously. We'll get Keith's thoughts. That at 9:40. Top of the second hour. I don't know if you saw, but Chris Sims, I think a very smart football mind, someone who's not afraid to go against the grain, not afraid to give his thoughts, even when it counters the public, I don't want to say public opinion, but, the court of public opinion, but, we'll say groupthink for the most part. He put out his quarterback rankings for the draft. Did not have Trevor Lawrence one. Really, the only person you could see out there that does not have Trevor Lawrence as the top quarterback heading to the draft. But it made me think. We're not going to talk about that specifically, but more who will be, I should say, the most successful quarterback coming out of this draft? Because I feel like logic, I feel like consensus feels like the easy thought is always, Trevor Lawrence because he's the best one. Or in other years, whatever the number one quarterback taken, Joe Burrow, going back to last year's draft and so on and so on and so on. When you look at the drafts and you look at the history, it rarely, if ever, plays out where the first quarterback taken usually is the most successful of the entire class. So we'll discuss that at 10 a.m. I think it's going to be a fun and interesting conversation. 10:20, there was a trade proposal for Deshaun Watson that I think is the best one I've seen so far. Not only for Deshaun Watson going to a team to contend, but also for the Texans. Because you got to remember, too, this is a team, again, they put themselves in this spot, but this is also a team that they're not just going to give, Deshaun Watson away. You have to bring something back to the table. This is, to me, in my mind, the best trade opportunity for the Texans and for Deshaun Watson. A true, because I feel like there's not many win-wins. Or if there are, people don't admit a win-win because you have to be on one side or the other. This, to me, offers the best win-win possibility out there. So we'll discuss that at 10:20 as well. Love to get your thoughts. Facebook, Worldwide Sports Radio Network, Twitter, WWSRN_radio, at Ryan Hickey Show, also on Twitter as well. But I do want to start in the NBA, and I do want to start with something coming off of last night's All-Star Game. Is it time for the NBA to change the way the end of the game situations work? Is it time for the NBA to, and really just all basketball, because this applies to the NBA, this applies to college basketball, high school basketball, any tournaments. I think personally, it's time that the way the fourth quarter works, the way the clock works, and kind of the way now we've seen a lot of close games end, I think it benefits the entire sport of basketball to change the way they finish games, to mirror it like we saw last night and last year in the All-Star games, and that is adopting the Elam ending full-time. For every single game, every single playoff game, no more clocks, no more foul shooting, no more fouls, no more inbounds plays, no more timeouts after, it feels like every basket the last 2 minutes. It's time to let the best players on the court actually decide the game and not have the clock be a factor with how you play. And here's what I mean by it. In case this is the first time you're hearing it, in case you're unaware, didn't really care about the All-Star game last night, didn't watch it too much. So what the NBA All-Star game the last 2 years have done, they have adopted this ending called the Elam ending. What it is this. The first 3 quarters of the game are timed like normal. So in the NBA, you have obviously 4 12-minute quarters. Well, the first 3 quarters, same thing. 12 minutes each. You'll have halftime. We'll have all the normalcy. I don't even know which way it is. I'm pretty sure it's normalcy. You have all of that together for the first 3 quarters like we usually see. And then there's some variations about how to do the fourth quarter, whether the entire fourth quarter is just playing to a target score, to where, let's say, the fourth quarter, there's no time, but all it is let's say you add, for example, what the NBA All-Star game did in honor of the late, great Kobe Bryant. When the fourth quarter started, they took the winning team's number, added 24 to that, and that becomes a target score. So now, you're not playing 12 minutes. All you're doing is playing to get to a target score. So let's say if the score is 100 to 75 heading to the fourth quarter. What they would do is they'd add 24 points to the 100. Now, all of a sudden, 124 is the target score. So first one to 124 wins. So obviously, if you're winning, you only got to score 24 points if it's 100 to 75. But if you're the losing team, obviously, you have a lot of work to make up to get to that 124 if you only have 75 heading to the fourth quarter. So what that does is it eliminates the clock. It eliminates fouls at the end. It eliminates, to me, the worst part about basketball, which ends up being the last 2 minutes of a game that's close. So you can either do that where the entire fourth quarter is a target score. You can do it where they've had the first 8 minutes of a quarter played regular, the first stoppage under 4 minutes. That's when you put a target score out there. Either way, to me, having an Elam ending full-time, every single game for the regular season, for the playoffs, college basketball, NBA, down the line, I'd adopt it full-time. Because it makes the game entertaining for 2 more reasons. Number one, why do we watch basketball? Right? We watch basketball for the athletic feats. We watch them for the stars. We watch them to see what is LeBron going to do next? What is Steph going to do next? How can Giannis will his team to victory here at the end? You watch for the players, and you want to see their biggest strengths come out in the big moments, right? That's one of the reasons why. And 2, or I'm sorry, that's one of the reasons the Elam ending would be beneficial, is because that is what it promotes. It promotes the big players playing their best in the primetime moments. So not only does it highlight the players' strengths, which we watch in the first place, it also gets rid of, like I said, the worst 2, 3, 4 minutes of basketball every single game, and that is what happens down the stretch if it's a close game, where it's a foul fest. It is stop and start, stop and start, stop and start. And the last 2 minutes feel like it takes 20 minutes. Eliminates all that. Because again, there's no clock to be stopping. So the Elam ending, having a target score, again, helps to not only reward good offense, but reward good defense. Because again, you're never out of it. If you can get stops, no matter how much you're down, you're truly never out of the game. So it rewards teams that take defense seriously, that tries to get a few stops, that keeps the game into it instead of trying to turn it into a track meet. Let's say like the Brooklyn Nets do, where, sure, defense in their mind is optional, but you got to score. Well, if 2 or 3 of those shots aren't falling down and they're letting their opponent score every other time, makes it harder to win the game, obviously. But it rewards teams that play well on both sides of the court. Because now, if you're a team losing, the biggest enemy isn't the clock. It's just your own play, which is how it should be, right? Don't you want to determine the outcome of the game, whether you play good or you play bad? The clock now, you can't sit in there, kill the clock, dribble the ball out for 20 seconds, throw up a shot, but just now you're just killing it. Now it is all about, it promotes scoring the entire game. Even if the game's a blowout, the incentive is not to run out the clock. The incentive is to score so the game's over quicker. So even end of games, not that they could be that much more exciting if your team's up by 20. But now, at least it's still promoting offense being run. It's still promoting scoring, still promoting watching the game we love get played out to the final play, the final bucket. So now both teams will have more energy down the stretch because, again, you're not just mailing it in. You're not just killing clock here. It's not just, all right, this game's over. Let's just run it out here. This truly does promote, in my mind, competition, which is what you want, which is, one of the biggest complaints about people in the NBA who aren't a fan or totally aren't into it is just they feel like there's not a lot of competition. There's not a lot of parity. And I think this could help promote that. So, again, not only to me does this changing of the rule to adapt what we saw in the All-Star game last night, what we saw in the All-Star game last year, into making a target score now the goal instead of just, play till the final 40 minutes are done. Like I said before, it eliminates the worst 2 to 3 minutes in all of the sport. Because I don't know about you. For me personally, nothing is worse in my mind than the foul parade that goes on the last minute or so, the constant timeouts after free throws. Like, there is absolutely, in a close game, or in a 5-point game, I should say, it's close down the stretch, there's no flow to the game. There is absolutely zero flow going on. It is team that's down tries to score. They do, okay, now they cut it to 4 or 5. What happens? Boom, foul right away, foul immediately. Free throws, then there's timeouts after the free throws to move the inbounds play up. You're drawing up inbounds plays. You're trying to get the ball, advance it to the front court. What happens? Boom, you drop a play. Another thing happens, either a foul. You either make it in foul, you're missing your foul. And it is just a slog the last 30 seconds, the last minute, the last 2 minutes. That's not really enjoyable to watch. I'm sorry. I forget the game I was watching the other week, but I tweeted it, and I was like, man, basketball would be so much better if there was no timeouts allowed. Because it's just like now, even with the foul shots that go on, the timeouts after the free throw shooting to draw up inbounds plays, to get everything set, it's so boring. Not only is it boring, again, when there's no flow in the game, it's tough to get into the rhythm, and it's tough to enjoy when it's stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. Well, you eliminate the clock, which is the main reason why teams foul to save the clock to give themselves a chance here. And now instead you worry about just playing good defense, and good defense bails you out. Isn't that way more exciting? That allows, I should say, much more of a flow to happen in the game, and it makes the games more enjoyable, more exciting. Nothing is worse to me in my mind than the fouls, timeouts, inbounds pass, fouls, timeouts, inbound pass. So you take away some of the choppiness out of the game, and you reward good play, which is how absolutely games should be played. Not to mention, end of the games now, again, instead of the foul free throw shooting that happens, instead of all the fouls going on, having a target score to score to helps the game go by smoother, helps it go by quicker in some instances, and it's just more enjoyable, more exciting, which is how it should be, right? I mean, isn't that the goal here? So to me, again, having a change in the way the game ends, the last 2 minutes of a game, take away the current rules or take away the current format of just 12 or 4 12-minute quarters where the game ends when the clock ends. Instead, adopt a target score like we have seen in the last few All-Star games. Because also, I'll say this. I'll get into this more in a second here, but the All-Star game, to me at least, is more enjoyable the last few years because there is an incentive to continue to play, to continue to score, because you don't win until you hit that number that's out there, the target score that is determined later on in the game. So again, it incentivizes play through the full game, which means what you want. More basketball, more good basketball, to me, is what the NBA should be pushing for, not less. And the Elam ending, again, to me, in my mind at least, does promote basketball, good basketball being played. So I'm curious your thoughts. If you watched the All-Star game last night, you saw this maybe for the first time, where the fourth quarter, there's 0 clock. All it is, you see a target score that is there in the corner, say this is what the teams have to reach to win. Is that the way games should be full-time? Is that the way games should be played in the NBA now moving forward, to where the last 2 or 3 minutes, it's all about scoring and getting stops instead of trying to preserve the clock, instead of trying to run out the clock if you're ahead, instead of you're trying to foul to stop the clock if you're down. Instead of a free throw shooting contest at the end of games, now it's about who can run the best offensive plays, who can get the most stops on defense, which is much more enjoyable, which is what you want to see if you're a fan of the NBA. So I'm curious your thoughts. Facebook, Worldwide Sports Network, Twitter, WWSRN_radio, or also on Twitter at Ryan Hickey Show. Love to hear your thoughts. Would this be more enjoyable? Taking out the clock in the fourth quarter or midway through the fourth quarter, whatever you want to do, there's a ton of different variations that could be done here. Would that make basketball more enjoyable? Would you be more of a fan? If you're not already, maybe if you're a casual fan, would it be more enjoyable to watch a game without a clock towards the end and watch the best players on the floor in the planet get the job done with their skill? And again, instead of going to the free throw line and hoping for a few misses. So get your thoughts again. Facebook, Worldwide Sports Radio Network, Twitter, WWSRN_radio, at Ryan Hickey Show, also on Twitter. We'll get your thoughts. And speaking of the All-Star game, I kind of want to get into that a little bit. I enjoyed it last night. In the past, I haven't really been the biggest All-Star fan. Don't really get into it too much, really, in any sport. But I'll be honest, last year and this year, I've been into these All-Star games. But of course, there's always a lot of negativity. There's always a lot of detractors. You saw that again on Twitter last night. So I want to know, why is there so much hate for the All-Star game? Why? We'll get into that next. It is the Ryan Hickey Show with you right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to the Ryan Hickey Show, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
And welcome on back into the Ryan Hickey Show with you right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. A new ending should be coming in sight to NBA games. If you watched the All-Star game last night, you saw the fourth quarter, no clock. No clock in the NBA. Instead, a target score was determined, put up there into the first team to basically reach this number win. Just like, you're playing 21 or pickup basketball on the court in the backyard, right? How does every game end if you're playing pickup basketball with your friends in the backyard? With a made shot, right? Impossible. We're playing to 11, win by 2, 21, win by 2, 21 straight up. There's all these different rules when you're playing. And again, there's no, when was the last time you had free throw shots and you're trying to foul your friends at the end of the game here to try to win? Not happening. So if we can bring the backyard basketball sense to the NBA, shouldn't we try to do that? Shouldn't we be able to do that? If we could make the game, to me personally, much more enjoyable, because now instead of me and you trying to make a few shots to win the game, it's Steph Curry or LeBron James or Kawhi Leonard or any star in the NBA. It's about them making shots to win and about getting defensive stops to win, nothing else. No fouls, no free throw shooting, no quirky inbounds plays or hack-a-shack, which makes, to me, the flow more continuous. You get a real feel for the game. There's no stopping and starting, which makes the game much more enjoyable in my mind, personally. So I'm curious if you feel the same way. We saw it now in the NBA All-Star Game 2 years in a row. I personally think it makes it more competitive, especially for an All-Star game. It makes it much more enjoyable. I think the NBA should adopt this policy full time. Every preseason game, every regular season game, every postseason game. College basketball as well. College basketball especially, because that's honestly, with a bigger shot clock and a longer shot clock, there's more fouls, more foul shooting. There's more fouls that happen even earlier in games than it would in the NBA, which is even, really screeches to a halt the flow of any game in college basketball. So it makes it more enjoyable to me. Again, it highlights the strengths of these players on the court. It makes it much more enjoyable for the fans, which is truly what you want. So I'm curious your thoughts. If you agree, Facebook Worldwide Sports Network. If you disagree, Facebook Worldwide Sports Network, Twitter, WWSRN_radio, at Ryan Hickey Show. Also on Twitter, you can tweet me there. You can write on the Periscope live stream. You can write on the Facebook live stream. Love to hear your thoughts. Is it time for change in the NBA? We'll get your thoughts throughout the show. Keith Smith will join us in about 15 minutes. We'll ask him that question. Someone who covers the league for a living. Is it time to adopt the Elam ending full-time? Get some excitement back into the end of games. Get some drama. Get some intrigue. I think it would be a massive win for the league, for fans, for players, for everybody involved with the game of basketball. So we'll see. We will see. There is some momentum, by the way. You've read now that maybe for overtime or preseason games, teams will be open to it. I think once it starts, that's the thing. It's once it starts, to me, once you get a taste of it, I think that's how it picks up steam, picks up momentum. It'll be a slow implement. Maybe we'll just start in preseason games. Maybe we'll start in just overtime games. I think slowly we will see it expand more and more and more to where those endings will become more popular. And again, I think fans, once you see more often, I think will really become liking to it. You won't miss. I'll tell you what you won't miss. You won't miss the fouls at the end of the game. Oh, man. Really missed that when you try to foul the inbounds pass and hope for a missed free throw. You won't miss that, I promise. You won't miss that. So we'll get your thoughts on there. Facebook again, Worldwide Sports Network, Twitter, WWSRN_radio, at Ryan Hickey Show, also on Twitter as well. But speaking of the All-Star game, I kind of want to get into that here before we get Keith on in a few minutes. Because, as you know, last night, if you watched or if you didn't watch, Team LeBron defeated Team KD, easy for me to say, 170 to 150 last night. And at least for me personally, I didn't really go into the All-Star. I went to the All-Star game last night, not really looking forward to it, not really expecting to talk 2 segments about it, to be completely frank. I just thought it was going to be something on. There's some college basketball on this weekend, a little golf, but especially Sunday night, there was really nothing else going on. So it's like, all right, I'll tune in. I'll see, what's going to happen, what the game's going to be like, some of the skills competitions, what's going to be like. And I'll be honest, coming away last night after everything ended, I'm like, wow, that was one of the most enjoyable All-Star nights that I have witnessed personally in my 26 years on this earth. I truly enjoy it. I enjoyed it. I thought it worked well. I thought it was fun. I thought it was exciting. Everything kind of was there in one. And I actually really, really enjoyed the skills competition, the dunk contest, the 3-point contest, and the game itself. But I feel like personally I am in the minority in that thinking. I don't think many people feel the way I do, which is that you come out of the game enjoying it, feeling like it was worth your time, whether it was Twitter, whether it was even different people I was talking to. They didn't enjoy the game last night. And I'm just curious, if you hated it, if you didn't like the All-Star game, didn't find it enjoyable, didn't really find it captivating, maybe turns it on for a few minutes and turns it off, I'd love to know why. Why didn't you like it? Why did you hate it? Why were you turned off? Facebook, Worldwide Sports Network, Twitter, WWSRN_radio, at Ryan Hickey Show. Also on Twitter if you want to tweet me there directly or comment on the live streams that are on those platforms. Why did you hate it? Because to me, it had all of the fixings to be a really enjoyable night. And I'll get this out of the way first. We'll start with the biggest complaint and maybe the easiest complaint to make about why you didn't enjoy the All-Star game. No defense. I know one of my friends I was talking to said that. I was even watching the game with my sister for a little bit. She said the same thing. She was chiding the defense, upset. Couldn't believe how little defense was being played. And I'll say this to the lack of defense crowd there that wants to complain that that's why it's not enjoyable to watch. To me, the lack of defense makes the game more enjoyable. And here's what I mean by that. In a normal game, we would never see the moves these players are doing that they pulled off last night, whether it's half-court shots, whether it's alley-oops, right? Whether it's lobs, whether it's bounce passes that, set up alley-oop. Like, there is so much that goes on skill-wise that these players show off in these games because there's no defense, that makes it more enjoyable, that makes it more fun. Like, these are, and again, with where we are in sports right now, with these athletes getting bigger, faster, stronger than we've ever seen, it allows them to do athletic feats and accomplishments that we have never seen. And isn't that fun? That's also the thing too, is now in the age of social media where everything is on video, everything goes viral quick. I feel like for the most part now, what is intriguing to people is things we've never seen before, right? Like I don't know about you, but for me, that is some of the moments that burn most, whether it's sports, whether it's not sports, it's in your life. Things you tend to remember more than anything else are things that you have never seen before, whether it's TV shows, whether it's, again, moves in sporting events, movies, just the news. There are things now where we basically get exposed to everything because we can see what happens at a store, for example, in, Phoenix, I believe, where you had the Bath and Body Works fight that went viral on Twitter over the weekend. We are now able to see what happens in any part of the world, in any part of the country. So now, just because we weren't there to experience it doesn't mean we don't see it. So we are exposed to a lot. And now it's about, there's a lot of copycats. There's a lot of just reruns and trying to, do spinoffs where it's not a lot of originality left. And the originality that does come out there spreads like wildfire because, again, it's things we haven't seen and we enjoy things we haven't seen before. And that's what I feel like these All-Star games now, especially the last few years, have become with no defense because it allows these players in a game setting, sure, to pull off feats that we have never seen before. Steph Curry last night, multiple times pulling up from half court and drilling these shots. Whenever, unless the clock is running out, would you see Steph Curry approach the half court line and get ready to pull up? Like we've seen him, 5 feet behind the line, 10 feet behind the line sometimes, drain some deep, deep threes. But we were talking half court pull up, bang, drained. Damian Lillard, same thing. And last night, his game-winning shot to give Team LeBron the win was a foot, a step inside half court, dribble, pull up, bang. Shooting daggers, shooting missiles from half court and making it. Last time we're seeing lobs to Giannis, lobs to Rudy Gobert. You have LeBron giving him the alley-oop from bounce pass, which is always pretty cool. You have Steph Curry giving lobs to CP3. When do you ever see that in a game? Chris Paul getting the alley-oop from Steph Curry. Chris Paul, I don't think has ever dunked in a game in his life. And here he is going up there for dunks and slamming it down. So you have big-time dunks. You have crazy half-court shots. You have just fun, athletic movements that, again, we never really see, even in the preseason. These guys don't pull off these moves. So the lack of defense that is always, to me, at least the biggest complaint, or maybe even the biggest excuse for why these All-Star games aren't enjoyable in fans' minds, I think promotes athletic feats that we've never seen before, which to me at least makes it enjoyable, makes it more fun to watch. So that was one of the reasons why I thought it was just awesome last night, because again, when these guys having fun, having a good laugh, playing some defense, sure, but again, just kind of getting out of the way, if you will, to allow some of these big moves is fun to watch. Not to mention, obviously because of COVID, this is why everything was kind of condensed to one night. Usually Saturday night, you have the skills competition, you have the dunk contest, you have the three-point contest. Well, at least this year, having it all condensed in one, I feel like trimmed a lot of the fat that surrounds these big-time events that, makes it boring. All these million commercial breaks in between, the dunk contest lagging out, and you have the skills competition, all three of these will drag out for 3-4, hours on Saturday night. Well, now it's bang, bang, bang. You get right to the skills competition, boom. Start right away, and 5 minutes later, you're in the finals. Three-point contest, boom, right away. And the dunk contest, I think it had, one commercial break. But it just promotes you, go, 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 go. Which, again, in this world, in this day and age where we want things fast, we want things instantaneously, we don't want to wait, we don't want to sit through 5-minute commercial breaks and just get dragged out and get played. I thought, again, that, the condensed schedule allowed for a better viewing experience, which to me made it more enjoyable. We want action. We got action. They forced, again, because of, unfortunately, the circumstances were forced it, but we were able to enjoy a lot of action, a lot of skill being displayed with not a lot of fat around it. Trim out the fat. Just like a filet mignon. Trim out the fat, boom. We got the meat of All-Star Weekend in a 4-hour window. But you got everything. So I will give Adam Silver credit, because obviously this has been a very controversial decision to even play the All-Star game this year. I remember even when they announced they're having an All-Star game, I said, I don't know about that. Maybe you can announce the teams, sure, but to actually have a weekend, actually have a game being played, I didn't like it. Not a lot of people liked it. The players certainly weren't for it. There was a ton of pushback on negativity surrounding the game. Then, of course, arguably one of the worst case scenarios to happen was you had two players, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, unfortunately, get dinged for contact tracing. They missed the game. Now, thankfully, at least for Adam Silver's case, it didn't happen in Atlanta, it happened in Philly. So you can maybe make the argument that, it was unavoidable, not a sole reason because of the All-Star game. But I would give him credit because Adam Silver took a page out of the NFL's book. And here's what I mean by that. The NFL, as we know, doesn't care for the most part about public perception. If they think they are doing something that's right, whether it's playing games, whether it's for example, I'll say this. I remember during this year, COVID specifically, and there were some outbreaks, and there was, if you remember that Steelers-Ravens game that was supposed to be on Thanksgiving night was played, I think, the following Wednesday, almost a week later. I was pounding the table. A lot of people were pounding the table for a week 18. Basically, have a week to push games back where you're not playing, a Steelers game on a Wednesday, then they're playing again on Monday, and you're having a whole schedule that's out of whack. And every week we're sitting there wondering, is this game going to get played? Well, the NFL kept pushing through. They didn't care what the public perception was. They pushed through, plowed through, and guess what happened? Not one game was canceled. They got everything in on time without a single delay. So they do things if they think it's right. Even if the public perception doesn't agree, they'll push through, and more times than not, it works out in the end. Well, Adam Silver did the same thing. A lot of negativity from players, from fans, from media about All-Star Weekend. Not going to work, not good, don't do it, so dumb, stupid, blah, blah, blah. You have the biggest stars in the games basically chiding and throwing daggers at Adam Silver because the All-Star game is being played. And what happened? How about you? I totally forgot about all of those complaints outside because it went off without a hitch. It seemed safe. The players were enjoying themselves. It was a lot of fun to watch. It worked out perfectly. So I'll give Adam Silver credit because he pushed through the negativity and it worked out for the best with a great game, a fun skills competition. The dunk contest I enjoyed. 3-point contest was fun. I think this is a massive win for the NBA this entire, well, I guess we'll say weekend, but really the one day last night. I thought it was a big win. So I'm curious your thoughts if you enjoyed the NBA All-Star game or not. Really, I want to hear from you more if you didn't. Because if you didn't, I would love to hear why. Facebook, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Twitter, WWSRN_radio. Add Ryan Hickey Show also on Twitter. So get your thoughts. And when we come back, we'll ask Keith Smith. Not only about his thoughts on the All-Star game last night, if it was enjoyable in his mind, but should the NBA change the way they end games? We'll discuss his thoughts when the Ryan Hickey Show returns right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to the Ryan Hickey Show, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
And welcome on back into the Ryan Hickey Show right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. The first half, or really the unofficial first half of the NBA season in the books last night as the NBA All-Star game comes and goes. Fun game, enjoyable game. And now as we kind of react on that, reflect on the All-Star game a little bit, and now also start to look ahead to the second half of the season. Very excited by our next guest who joins us. Keith Smith, heard his name before. He's on the show back when the bubble was going on down there in Orlando. Great NBA reporter for Yahoo Sports, RealGM, CelticsBlog, front office show. He's all over the NBA map. He's on Twitter at Keith Smith NBA. Keith, thanks for a few minutes this morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for giving us a few minutes here. So I'm just curious, I don't know, but how did you feel about last night's All-Star game? I enjoyed it personally. I thought it was one of the most enjoyable All-Star games we've had of late. I know, especially if you look on Twitter, it's always not the most prevailing thought or not the most popular thing to say that you enjoyed the All-Star game. But I thought it was fun. I think it worked in the end for all the pushback that it got initially. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the All-Star game is always fun. You just can't take it overly serious. If you're looking for deep meaning or, trying to find trends or anything like that, you're really wasting your time. But if you just take it as enjoyable and, watch these guys kind of run up and down and show off their skills, then yeah, it's fine. I did find myself, I missed the Saturday night separate component. I missed that part of the whole weekend thing. It just felt like there was too much going on last night, but overall, it was enjoyable. It's always a fun event.
I'm with you there, and you made a great point too. Not take it too seriously, because it's like I think if you just relax and enjoy the players for their athletic feats and what they can do. Like, I know the popular, I guess opinion or the popular criticism is, oh, there's no defense played. It's so dumb. But to your point, if you just sit back and enjoy the talents that these guys have, seeing Steph Curry pull up from half court, seeing CP3 get alley-oops thrown to him, it really is an enjoyable event. And I think Adam Silver, for all the negativity and pushback he got for having this event, I think in the end you can look back and say it definitely was a success. Even unfortunately, with unfortunate Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons getting dinged for contact tracing, and we'll see what happens if that has to hold him out of so many games or not. But other than that, I thought it went really well, and it was a success all around for the NBA. But I'm curious, especially last night too, we saw for the second straight year the Elam ending implemented to end the game. And I don't know about you, Keith. I enjoy it a lot. I think it's something NBA should consider full-time. Do you agree or no?
No, I would hate it full-time.
Really? Why?
Yeah, I don't think – I think when people look at it, there to me is what gets missed in that is, yeah, blowout games they're not necessarily always fun to watch or fun to cover, but they are important for teams. There are young players, developing players. That's the only time they get minutes. Those minutes do matter. It gives them a chance to get something on film outside of practice minutes. I think there is, this desire to get rid of things, and like let's get things over with. Mm-hmm. If you're watching a game just to, get it over and done with, I don't understand why people watch it all in that situation. So no, anything that creates less basketball, I'm generally against. In an exhibition season, 100% do that. They can get that in an all-star game. Totally understand why they do it. I understand why the tournament does it. Part of their thing is you got to keep games moving. So I understand why they do it there. But yeah, overall for the NBA, no, I would not want to see it, adopted for regular practice and regular season or playoff games.
So I'll say this because I think it'd be a great idea for this reason. You kind of hit on it. Like you said, less basketball. To me, I think it would create more basketball just because now the final, even, blowout games, sure, but even close games, teams down by 5 points last minute, 45 seconds. I know it's a little bit less in the NBA compared to college basketball just because the shot clock and the viability or the frequency to miss free throws in college is higher than the NBA. But to me, Keith, nothing is worse the last 2 minutes, minute and a half minute, just watching free throw shooting, going to the line, timeout, inbounds play, shot, miss or make, foul, free throws, timeout. It's like, to me at least, there's such a choppiness that there's no flow to some of these games that are close if teams are trying to come back, or at least when you don't have a clock, there's no reason to foul. So you take away, the foul shots, you take away the hack-a-shack, if you will, and you promote basketball being played. Like that's at least to me the biggest thing why I think it could be a fun thing because it rewards teams playing hard defense, especially at the end. And now it requires teams to make shots instead of just dribbling out a clock. Now it's up to you to, hey, go win the game instead of basically trying to, allow a clock to determine if you're a winner or not.
Yeah, see, I think free throws are a part of the game.
Okay.
I think they're an integral part of the game. I think the NBA has done a great job cutting down how long that end of game period takes when they have limited teams. They can only have 2 timeouts in the final couple of minutes each. So I think that is really important. What they've got to clean up is the use of the reviews. That's what, drags everything down. But the fouling and using, timeouts and that, it's funny because I hear that a lot of, it just takes so long and we drag all this stuff out. But when you really look at it, it doesn't really go, all that much longer. I think, and I think in sports in general, the clock is a big part of it. I never see anybody make this comment of, hey, we should play football games to a score. No one ever goes there with an NFL game. So why do we have to do that with the NBA? That part I've never really understood.
I guess I'll say with football, like at least there is strategy with the clock, like 2 minutes timeout, trying to run the 2 minute out. Like basketball, because especially the court is so short, you can advance it with when you call a timeout, advance to the front court. It's not like I guess the clock is that much of a hindrance again, unless you're behind playing the free throw game. But I guess maybe the clock is more important. I would say in football, it's more strategy wise than basketball. I think it'd be interesting going forward. I know there's some rumblings, or at least I saw on Twitter some reading of maybe teams embracing it, like you said, in the exhibitions, or maybe even thinking about it. Blues, Darren Moore wants to use it for overtime games going forward. Is this something that you think could creep into the NBA eventually, or is this we'll use it for the All-Star game, maybe exhibitions, but other than that, you don't think it would be a legitimate future part of the NBA?
No, and no one I've ever talked to with the league has any real interest in pushing it beyond this. There are people in the league who would like to see it go this way, but anyone who actually works for the NBA, the league itself, anybody I've talked to there, none of them seem to be, really interested in doing it beyond an exhibition. There's also the idea of, hey, we want to protect the history of the game. We want to make sure, things can be, relatively comparable across eras as much as we can and those kind of things. So I don't think we're ever going to see it, push beyond that.
Talking to Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA. So at least now looking towards the second half of the season, Keith, one of the biggest storylines, one of the biggest talking points, first half is, the Utah Jazz. Are they for real? Is this, legit? And as we've seen, really, especially the past week, kind of a lot of disrespect card that they felt like they've been instructed by the referees. Obviously, we had the incident with the All-Star draft, to take that for what you will, with LeBron saying the comment about no one plays with the Utah Jazz. Don Mitchell, Rudy Gobert, the last two players drafted in the All-Star draft. In your mind, watching how the Jazz played in the first half, are they legitimate contenders? If we get to the playoffs, can they legitimately give the Lakers a run for their money, the Clippers a run for their money, or are they a regular season team that will play really well but will come to the playoffs you're not a believer in?
Yeah, no, I think they can. I think the Jazz are built on a couple, tenets on offense of moving the ball and 3-point shooting. They're elite in both of those areas. Mm-hmm. And then defensively, they are one of the best defensive teams in the league, anchored by Rudy Gobert at the rim. And the two things you need to be able to do against the Lakers and Clippers is protect the rim. The Lakers, because they've got Anthony Davis, they've got Montrezl Harrell, got LeBron James, guys who really do a lot of damage in and around the paint. And then the Clippers with Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, they're an attacking team that likes to get downhill and go to the basket. So having Gobert there, really does help wall things off. And there's a lot of, sense with the Jazz of, are they playing over their heads right now? And those kind of things. And when I really look at the Jazz, they're shooting the ball really, really well, almost at a historic level. But what they're not doing is none of their guys are shooting, 50% that are normally 35% shooters or anything like that. Everybody's, right around their norms. It's just they've all generally been healthy, and they've all been playing together for a little while now, and that continuity has really helped them. So I'm a believer. I think the key for them is they don't want to have to go through both LA teams in the same playoff run. Mm-hmm. So keeping them on the same side of the bracket, that seems to be what will set up best for the Jazz to have a shot at getting to the West Finals and then ultimately a shot at the NBA Finals.
Keith, I'm totally with you. Like I said, the two things, especially when you watch in the first half of the year, they do really well that is imperative to winning in the NBA today's age. They shoot the three ball really well, and they play great defense. And to your point, like they have the personnel to match up with the Clippers, to match up with the Lakers. Like you said, they have an AD stopper, if you will, and Rudy Gobert that can go down low. Like, what is it? Just the name, the Utah Jazz? Is it because Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert aren't household names like LeBron and Kawhi and Paul George and AD are? Like, when you watch them, you think this is legit, but the story and the narrative is all about how, they're just almost not paper tigers, but they're not getting trusted or believed in when it comes thinking about the playoffs. Is it just like, what is in your mind that doesn't allow media fans to kind of buy into the Jazz when you actually watch them on the court?
Yeah, I think it's some of all of that. If you put it all together, that's what adds up to it. I also think there is this trend, which is not unwarranted, of these teams that race out to these incredible regular seasons. Mm-hmm. They don't always, hold up in the postseason. And I think we saw that with the Milwaukee Bucks the last couple of years. They had great regular seasons, and then in the playoffs, it's a different game. They weren't able to adjust and change their style of play, and they just weren't as good. And I think that's a little bit of what's going on with the Jazz, as well as people look at it and they can really kind of tell themselves, hey, that team's good, but they're not, are they going to hold up? We've seen the Lakers do it. We've seen the Clippers players do it. Mm-hmm. We haven't seen them do it as a unit, but we believe, that those guys can be there in the end. And if you look on the other side, everybody's kind of got that faith and trust in the Brooklyn Nets of, hey, they'll be there, when it matters, despite what they do in the regular season. And that's the thing with the NBA. It's very much a 2-season game. There's the regular season, then there's the playoffs. Until you've done it and proved it in the playoffs at least a couple times, nobody necessarily is going to believe it until they see it.
Talking to Keith Smith, Yahoo Sports, RealGM, CelticsBlog, front office show all over the NBA map at Keith Smith NBA on Twitter. So you just mentioned the Eastern Conference. Is in your mind, is it the Nets conference to lose?
I don't know that I'd go quite that far. I think that at this point they should be probably, in my mind, a minimum of co-favorites with the Bucks. And I think the Sixers and Celtics and Heat all still have a chance. The Sixers are very much a, prove it to us in the playoffs team. The Celtics and Heat have not played well yet, but they kind of have that cachet that you can believe in them, that they'll be there when it matters. And then I think the Bucks are are making regular season sacrifices towards wins and record that they haven't the last couple of years because they're experimenting defensively. They're tweaking some rotations. They're doing some different stuff that is hopefully short-term losses for long-term gains. That said, the Nets have the 3 All-Stars. They're going to continue to finish out that roster. I don't think Sean Marks is done. They're going to add Blake Griffin sometime in the next few days to that team. We'll see how much he ultimately helps them. And then they're going to probably be active at the trade deadline and then in buyout season. So yeah, there's no reason to believe the Nets can't do it. It's just more at this point will they do it is kind of the question.
You mentioned the Celtics before, Keith, and obviously you know them very well. You cover them for CelticsBlog, so you got to see them firsthand a lot. I'm curious, should we be, I don't want to say surprised with, or to say that we saw this coming for them in this disappointing first half, if you will, but when you look at what's going on, Jason Tatum, obviously an all-star, played last night. Jaylen Brown has really taken a big step. Those 2 guys are playing really well. It's the rest of the team that's been gutted, especially their depth the last few years that's coming up short. Is it surprising, or should it be surprising, I should say, that they've had a disappointing first half? And do you think in your mind they can do anything to turn it around in the second half to be the threats to the Nets or the Sixers going forward?
Yeah, no, it's 100% fair to be disappointed in them. They have not played well, and they've really kind of not earned, where they are at, or they have not. They've not earned anybody to believe in them more than what they've shown to this point. But that said, Kemba Walker looks good now. It took him a little while to get going. Marcus Smart will be back. That'll really help them quite a bit. They need him not only as a defender, which everybody knows he's one of the better defensive players in the league, but they need him as a secondary creator, a secondary playmaker, especially off the dribble. And then Brown and Tatum have shown that they're good enough. And there's, again, talk about a team where it feels like they've got maybe a trade or 2 in them to kind of, refashion and flesh out this roster a little bit. They also are very reliant on young players. So if their young players are the experience they're getting now, they can turn that into better play in the second half. I think you'll see the Celtics take off. It would not surprise me at all if you see Boston play, 10 games or so over 500 in the second half of the season. And as we go into the postseason, they look a lot like the team everybody thought we might see at the beginning of the year.
So especially in the East, Keith, so far in the first half, it's really been a 3-team race, right? You have the Bucks, the Sixers, and the Nets. So if you take those 3 out of it for a second here, out of the second grouping, if you will, the Heat, the Raptors, the Celtics in your mind, the team that could make a run that gives these 3 the biggest push in the playoffs?
Yeah, Celtics or Miami.
Okay.
Miami did it last year. I think Miami's they're a little bit different this year. In they were uniquely built for the bubble with a handful of veteran guys and younger players that could really just lock into that environment and kind of do the we're here for a mission where we're gonna go lock out all outside distractions, and that really aided them in this push. We'll see how they do in a more normal type environment, especially as we get later in the season and into the postseason when there'll be fans and travel and all the other things. So we'll see, but I still have some belief in their talent. But yeah, it's between of that grouping of teams. I think it's Boston and Miami because the Knicks, the Hornets, there are a lot of questions about them. The Raptors, they've really been up and down all season long. So yeah, give me the Celtics and Heat if someone's going to break through of that group.
Talking to Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA is where you can find all his great work on Twitter. So 2 more questions for you, Keith. And you just kind of hit on before with bringing in the Heat, and especially with how they had success in the bubble last year. I'm just kind of curious from your, to your point, especially the last year, the Heat were a team first kind of organization, right? Jimmy Butler obviously is a star, but that team bought in, and in a league that is built on dynamic duos all over the league, right? The Heat were one of those kind of outliers that really was a team kind of bond. They shot the throw, they played good defense. Was their performance in reaching the finals last year a big reason because of the bubble? Was that just one of those teams, like you said, that just worked out really well? Or can that kind of style, because you kind of see it similar with the Jazz, could that actually work in the long run here, where instead of relying on 2 superstars to kind of carry the load in the playoffs, where you can get the job done, you can get wins as a team in the postseason? Do you think was last year the Heat run an anomaly? Can we look at that going forward, or is that just or I should say, can we look at that style going forward as a reason for success, or was it just an anomaly in the bubble?
Yeah, no, the style, you can definitely look forward to seeing that as a success. That's that's the way you win in the NBA now. I think what you do need to recognize, though, is their personnel. That's what's a little bit different. They're kind of the mindset for them. That's what sets them aside. But yeah, I mean, we talked about it before, right? The Jazz shoot a ton of 3-pointers, play defense. They play very together, and they're much more of a normal type of success pattern that we see. The Phoenix Suns somewhat in that similar type position. The Nets even play that way without the defense component. That's somewhere where they've lacked to this point in the season. But yeah, that's the new game in the NBA.
And finally, Keith, you mentioned it before, but Blake Griffin obviously now looks like he's about to sign with the Nets. Is his addition going to change their hopes at all one way or another? Or is this just more of maybe a bigger name, if you will, of being Blake Griffin, actually what he'll bring on the court in terms of impact?
Yeah, I was saying I like to use a lot that players become more name than game at some point in their career, and that's where Blake Griffin is at. Unfortunately, he can't do anything really defensively except positionally defend. He's an okay rebounder if the ball comes within his area because he is still pretty strong. Offensively, he's an okay shooter, and he's a really good passer. But he can't do anything off the dribble. He hasn't dunked the ball in now almost 2 years. Mm-hmm. So it's been, we're going on. You're watching a guy's career completely change his trajectory. He'll help the Nets because they can use really kind of any kind of quality depth, especially in their front court that they can find. But I don't think he changes much of their ceiling. I think there are other teams that he could have gone to where he could have lifted them a little higher than what they may be, otherwise. And in Brooklyn, I think he just becomes, another piece. But I'd be surprised if by the time we get into the postseason, if he's playing any kind of key moments for them. I don't think we're going to see that.
All right, definitely be I like that. I'm going to start saying that more name than game. Yahoo Sports, RealGM, CelticsBlog front office show is where you can find Keith's work at Twitter at Keith Smith NBA. Keith, really do appreciate the time and enjoy the second half of the season.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Y'all stay safe, you and yours.
You as well. Stay safe as well, Keith. That is a great Keith Smith joining us there for a few minutes. Not a fan of the Elam ending. Started the show praising personally. I think it would be a good idea for the league to adopt going forward. Keith likes or believes that it would take too much away from the game. Free throw shooting is a part of the game in his mind. He would not be a fan of it. So we'll circle back to that in about 40 minutes or so to end the show. Give you my thoughts again. Give you Keith's thoughts before we get here. When we come back, we'll do a little NFL. The NFL draft is just about 6 weeks away. As we know, really the consensus so far for the top quarterback that's going to go number one, no surprise, Trevor Lawrence, without a doubt. But just because Trevor Lawrence goes number one, does that mean he will have the most success in the NFL as a quarterback that will be drafted in 2020? I will give you a different name that I think will have the most on-field success in their career. I'll tell you who that is next. It is the Ryan Hickey Show right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to the Ryan Hickey Show, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
And welcome back into the Worldwide Sports Radio Network, hour number 2 of the Ryan Hickey Show with you here until 11 a.m. Eastern. One down, one to go. We appreciate you starting your Monday morning with us right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Coming to you live, as you always are, from the Big Italy Pizzeria Studios, where it's great pizza, hot heroes, and phenomenal dinners. Check out Big Italy Pizzeria in person in Medford, Joe's Pizzeria in Bayshore, classic New York pizza joint also in Bayshore, or online at BigItalyPizza.com. So we are approaching the NFL draft. It is slowly getting there. Free agency about to start here in just over a week, just about 10 days or just under 10 days. For the most part, that'll be the next, obviously, big day in the NFL calendar. And then we slowly inch our way towards the NFL draft in late April. And I was just kind of thinking, I saw a tweet out by Chris Sims I'll give you here in a second. But just kind of thinking, we know for a fact, right, Trevor Lawrence is going to go number one to the Jaguars. Urban Meyer all but said it at his pro day. There's no debate. There's no question. We're not going to sit here and discuss who the Jaguars should take at number one. What I do want to think about, what I do want to discuss, and in part because Chris's rankings here, I'll give you in a second, made me think. Because Trevor Lawrence is drafted number one, does that mean he will have the most success of any quarterback taken in the NFL draft? So will he have more success than Zach Wilson coming out of BYU, or Justin Fields out of Ohio State, or Trey Lance out of North Dakota State, or any other quarterback, Mac Jones out of Alabama? Those are really the names that are going to be talked about, right? Probably go in the first round, different points. Well, just because Trevor Lawrence goes number one, Does that mean he will have the most success when we're sitting here in 5 years, in 10 years, in 20 years? The odds say no. I think it's a fascinating debate. I'll give you who I think will have the most success in a second. But I want to give you this the genesis of what gave me this thought. Because Chris Sims, again, a very smart, well-respected football man, obviously a former NFL quarterback himself. He put out his draft rankings for quarterbacks. This is going into the draft. This is not what he thinks, or I'm sorry, this is not who he thinks will have the most success in the NFL for a career. This is just if he was a team, his big board would be Zach Wilson, number 1. Trevor Lawrence, number 2. Mac Jones, 3. Kellen Mond, 4. Justin Fields, 5. Trey Lance, 6. So that is his rankings of everything he's watched in college throughout Trevor Lawrence's 3 years and Justin Fields' 2 years. This is everything he has compiled to say, I think right now, coming out of the draft, if I had the number 1 pick, if I was the Jacksonville Jaguars, Chris Sims would take Zach Wilson. Okay. Again, he is going against the grain because everyone else you talk to, Mel Kiper, Todd McShay, any draft expert that you like, whatever website that you want to see that whose rankings you respect, they have Trevor Lawrence number 1. It's really not a debate, right? But one thing I feel like we don't really think about, we don't really discuss, don't really ponder too often is just because Trevor Lawrence is by far and away the consensus number 1 draft ranked quarterback coming out of college heading to the draft. Does that mean he will have success, or the most success, I should say, in the NFL of all these draft quarterbacks? Well, the odds say no. Just because he's taken number 1, just because we think he is the best quarterback coming into the draft, does nothing to guarantee that he'll be the best quarterback after the draft in 5 years and 10 years from now and 15 years from now. Think about it. How many times has a quarterback, the first quarterback taken, forget just going number 1 overall, the first quarterback in a draft taken, how many times have they been the best one? Not often. Let's just go, I'll quickly here give you a small sample size, 10 years. The last 10 years of the NFL draft, how many, I'll give you the most successful quarterbacks so far and where they're taken in terms of how many quarterbacks are taken ahead of them. So maybe it's unfair to do this just 1 year out, but through the first season, I think it's fair to say Justin Herbert was the best quarterback out of last year's draft class. Now, maybe Joe Burrow doesn't get hurt as that case, but Justin Herbert, 1 Rookie of the Year, deserves so. He is the best quarterback of any quarterback taken last year in the draft. Well, he is, as we know, was a 3rd quarterback taken by the Chargers. They are number 6. The year before that, 2019, Kyler Murray, I think fair to say the best quarterback. He was the 1st quarterback taken. 2018, I'll give you either or. I'll either give you Josh Allen if you think he's the best so far, or Lamar Jackson. Either one, obviously, Lamar Jackson won an MVP. Josh Allen had the best year of any quarterback taken in the 2018 draft this past year. So Josh Allen, if you want to vote for him as the best quarterback, was the 3rd quarterback taken, as we know, by the Bills. Lamar Jackson, 5th. So either the 3rd quarterback or the 5th quarterback taken in the 2018 draft has been the most successful so far. 2017, easy to say, Patrick Mahomes, he was the 2nd quarterback taken. The 2016 draft, how about this one? Fair to say, easy to say when you rack your brain. Dak Prescott, right? You had Jared Goff that year go number 1, Carson Wentz number 2. But Dak Prescott, the 8th quarterback taken in the draft so far through 4 years, has been the most successful quarterback in the NFL out of that draft class. 2015, we'll give it to Jameis Winston, but if you remember, Jameis Winston went 1, Marcus Mariota went 2. Nothing to write home about, not a big prize, if you will, but we'll give Jameis Winston the 1st overall pick in that draft. We will say he is the most successful quarterback of anyone taken in that draft. 2014, Derek Carr, 4th quarterback taken. 2013, now this is a doozy. If you were taking a quarterback in 2013, I don't have to give you the draft class because I'll just say who has the most success will determine that there was a terrible, terrible time to take a quarterback. Geno Smith, I think you can make the argument, maybe is the most successful quarterback of this crew. Or Mike Glennon. Either or. You want to go Mike Glennon, who started a few games last year. Geno Smith, who is at least backing up Russell Wilson right now in Seattle. Geno was the 2nd quarterback taken. Mike Glennon was the 3rd quarterback taken. 2012, Russell Wilson, most successful quarterback, especially right now, still playing. He was a 6th quarterback drafted. And we'll go all the way back to Cam Newton a decade ago exactly. He was the 1st overall pick, the 1st quarterback taken. He is the most successful. So if you look through the 10 quarterbacks, one a year in the draft class that's been the most successful, only 3, Kyler Murray in 2019, Jameis Winston in 2015, Cam Newton in 2011. Those are the only 3 instances where the first quarterback taken in the draft turned out to be the most successful quarterback in the draft. Only 3 out of 10, 30%. And a lot of times there was a consensus that, hey, this guy's going to go number 1, no doubt. And what happens, as we know, usually the one we think heading into the draft is going to be the best quarterback rarely ever actually does end up being the best quarterback in the draft. Now, a lot of this is not just on the quarterbacks themselves, because a lot of this also has to do with the situations these guys are drafted to. 2 things that shows quickly here before we get into who I think will be the most successful quarterback coming out of this year's draft class. Number 1, I think just highlighting this, again, 30% of quarterbacks taken at all, or I should say the first quarterback taken in the draft, 30% have actually worked out to be the best quarterback actually in the draft. Shows tanking is not a viable strategy, because just because you get the highest draft pick and you're able to draft maybe your pick of the litter when it comes to any quarterback you want, if you have the first overall pick or the second pick, doesn't mean that you will have the most successful quarterback. Because again, drafting the first quarterback, if ever means that it will actually be a successful situation. And as we know, and this is another stating the obvious here, developing a franchise quarterback, far from easy. Anything but a slam dunk, which again goes back to why tanking is not a viable strategy, just because again, there's zero guarantee that you getting the first pick or a top 5 pick or a top 3 pick guarantees that you will get a transcendent quarterback, because guess what? As we've seen, it's the guys who are the 3rd quarterback taken, the 5th quarterback taken, the 6th, the 8th quarterback drafted that ended up being the most successful. Rarely the first. And again, not only is it, sometimes on the quarterback themselves, it's about the situations you go to. Is Justin Herbert the most talented quarterback this past year's draft? I would still give it to Joe Burrow personally. But you look at the situation that Justin Herbert found himself in going to Los Angeles with, Austin Eckler to hand the ball off to, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Hunter Henry. There were some weapons there to throw the ball to, and there's a reason why he was able to step in and have success right away. A lot of the times, situation helps dictate the success of the quarterback. The worse the team is, as we've seen with Sam Darnold, I still think Sam Darnold had a ton of talent. But when you don't give him an offensive line to block for him, when you don't give him any weapons to throw the ball to, when you have no threat of a run game, when you have a head coach that doesn't really know what he's doing in Adam Gase, these guys will fail and not have success. And in part, because sometimes it has nothing to do with their actual talent. So that gets me, and just trying to lay this out here, to get to the conversation of which quarterback right now, before we know where their team is going, what team they end up on being, what team or what quarterback, I should say, do you think will have the most success going forward out of this draft class? Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, Trey Lance, maybe Kellen Mond is a guy that Chris Sims you just heard is high on. Who will be the most successful quarterback when we sit here in 3 years, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years and say, man, how do we not see this coming? How did we let Patrick Mahomes get down to the 10th pick and be the second quarterback taken? How did so many teams pass over him and not see his success coming? Man, Dak Prescott, look what he's turned out to be as the 8th quarterback taken in the draft. Russell Wilson, 5 quarterbacks were drafted ahead of him. How did we let that happen if you're a team? I think the person we'll be saying that about, and again, in a decade from now, I think truly will be Justin Fields. I've been very high on him really since this year started. Now, I don't want to say slander, but now he's seemingly not as looked upon as highly as maybe he was when this year first started. I think he is going to be a guy when we sit here in a decade from now saying, wow, that guy, he had more success than Trevor Lawrence. His career was better than Zach Wilson. He had the most success of any quarterback taken in the 2021 draft. Here's why. I like his talent overall. I think he's very accurate. I like his decision-making. He makes some NFL-type throws. He plays his best in the big moments. But also, too, we talked about situational instances where that helps make a quarterback or break a quarterback. A few destinations, two teams that popularity-wise have been, Justin Fields has been mocked to the most. The Atlanta Falcons at 4, the Carolina Panthers at 8. Part of the reason why I think Justin Fields can have so much success in the NFL, because if he goes to either one of those teams, I think both of them will set him up for some massive success. And here's why. If you look at Atlanta, if he goes there, he won't start right away. He will sit behind Matt Ryan for a year. Not the worst thing in the world. Get used to the speed of the NFL. Learn from a great, talented quarterback who won an MVP himself, who knows what it is to be great, who knows what it takes to get to a Super Bowl in Matt Ryan. I think he'd be a great mentor for Justin Fields, teaching him how to be a pro, teaching him the nuances of the position, and allowing him to learn without really much pressure of being thrown into a situation and basically say sink or swim. So not only that, you have weapons to throw to. You have Calvin Ridley. We'll see if Julio Jones is there, but if he is there in 2 years, those are two great weapons right away for Justin Fields to have. If you look at Carolina, same thing. If he goes to Carolina, he will probably start right away. Well, you get to walk into a situation where you have Christian McCaffrey as your running back. You have Robbie Anderson, a solid number one receiver. You have an up-and-coming receiver in DJ Moore. You have weapons to throw to in both Atlanta and Carolina that can help elevate your play and not put it all on your shoulders. That's huge. The situation half the time dictates the success these quarterbacks have, which is why you see more often than not, the quarterback that is drafted first usually goes to the worst team in the draft. We're going to the worst team or getting drafted the highest. Sure, comes with some cool prestige, comes with some, a nice check. But if anything, that hurts and stunts your growth more than it does help it. So falling in the draft, maybe it hurts the pride a little bit. Maybe it stings a little bit sitting there and watching guys get taken that you feel you're better than. Sure, I'm sure it's not enjoyable. But at the same time, that helps set you up for success better than maybe if you went, let's say, number 2 to the Jets, let's say, or number 1 to the Jaguars, or a team that is just in shambles, that's hoping for you to be the savior, when in fact, as we've seen, drafting a quarterback for them just to be the savior rarely actually works. Which is why if you're Justin Fields and you're, the popular spots that people think you get drafted to, the Falcons or the Panthers, they both set you up for legitimate success throughout your career. Because even if you go to Carolina, right? If you don't go to Atlanta, where you get to sit behind Matt Ryan for a year, even if you go to Carolina and right away you're starting, when you look at where that team is, that team next year isn't relying on you to be playoff or bust. That team has some pieces and some young talent, but at the same time, they are all growing together. The timeline for when a quarterback like Justin Fields would come in there is perfect for him because they are all building and growing. It is a process. He's getting it on the ground floor. Matt Rule just got there, long contract. They're trying to bring in youth. They are trying to get a culture developed. And now you are bringing Justin Fields into that culture to help him to be there, cultivate it, and get this team going forward where you just take steps. Where a 5-11 season next year is progress. Going 6-10, you can hang your hat on and say, you know what? That was a good first year, everything considered. You don't have the pressure of needing to win right away, needing to dazzle on the first snap of the first game you play of your career. It is legitimately about growing and getting better week after week, year after year, which is not the case in every single spot you go to. So Carolina, the timeline would be similar. Again, Atlanta, you sit behind Matt Ryan. Both situations, if either one of these teams get Justin Fields, the head coaching position is sturdy. But you're not going to worry about the head coach getting fired in a year or two. Arthur Smith just hired in Atlanta. As you know, Matt Rule hired last year, 7-year deal. David Tepper, the owner of the Panthers, has patience. Seems he's going to let this thing ride out. So you don't have to worry about Baker Mayfield going to the Browns having 4 head coaches in 3 years. Baker Mayfield heading to his 4th year for the first time in his career, having the same offense from one year to the next. For the first time in his career, having an offseason where the offense isn't changing. He's not learning a new system. He's not learning new cadences, new language. It is the same thing. Sam Darnold, 2 head coaches in 3 years. Probably being on a new team after this year. A lot of these guys going ahead, going to hostile situations, don't end up working out. Because there's so much change, you can never really get comfortable. That also hurts your growth. That's why, at least to me, again, we'll see on draft day how things pan out. But I think it's fair to say, it's easy to say, Trevor Lawrence by far and away is the number 1 quarterback heading into the draft. He will go number 1 of the Jaguars. Not a discussion, not a doubt, not a thought. But when it comes to discussing and thinking about which quarterback will have the most success of these guys in 5 years, in 10 years, and 15 years when we look back on their careers, I truly do think it's going to be Justin Fields. Part because of the talent he has, the skill he has, part because of the situation he's landing to is more favorable than a few others at the top of the draft. So I'm curious your thoughts. Facebook, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Twitter, WWSRN_radio, at Ryan Hickey Show, also on Twitter. Which quarterback taken in this year's draft, the 2021 draft, which do you think will have the most success when their career is said and done? We're sitting here in maybe even 5 years as the year is going on. 10 years, 15 years. Who we look back and say that guy will have the most success of any quarterback taken in the draft? Will it be Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Mac Jones? Or is it someone we're not even talking about? Is this guy in the 3rd round that you have your eye on? You know what? If he goes to the right spot, he could be the next Russell Wilson. He could be the next Dak Prescott. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Facebook, Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Twitter, WWSRN_radio, at Ryan Hickey Show, also on Twitter, if you want to chime in there and get your thoughts. Who will be the most successful quarterback taken in this year's draft? We'll do that. And when we come back, also, speaking of quarterbacks, the absolute perfect trade for Deshaun Watson and the Houston Texans. I have the destination. I'll tell you the team next. It is the Ryan Hickey Show right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to the Ryan Hickey Show, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
Welcome on back into the Ryan Hickey Show right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio. We're taking until 11 a.m. Eastern. Adam Schefter, talking on Get Up this morning, reporting that Tom Brady wants Odell Beckham Jr. on the Buccaneers. Now, Adam Schefter says it's going to be tough to do because of Odell's contract. Bucs don't have a lot of cap room. But as we've seen before, Tom Brady has gotten a lot of wishes. Antonio Brown, boom, check, he's on the Buccaneers. Gronk on the Buccaneers. Leonard Fournette on the Buccaneers. Now, a lot of those guys you can get a lot cheaper than you could get OBJ with his contract already obviously created. He's not going to get cut. We can give him just a small contract for him to go play with Tom Brady. But Brady wants Odell on the Bucs. Could you imagine Antonio Brown, Odell Beckham Jr., Mike Evans as the Buccaneers receivers next year? A lot of drama. That'd be interesting to watch to see they can keep it together for 16 games. But there is a trade out there that obviously Tom Brady wants to make to get Odell Beckham Jr. How about another trade that was thrown out there that, to me at least, when we're talking about Deshaun Watson, we're talking about where he could end up, the destinations. It's a lot of, I don't want to say pie in the sky, but it's a situation where these deals have to make sense for the Texans as well. They're not gonna give away a top 5 quarterback for pennies on the dollar, for like a 2nd round pick and a 1st round pick. You got to give them a legitimate offer that would say to them, you know what? Yeah, we're okay with dealing Deshaun Watson. Obviously, you have to make sure it's okay with Deshaun Watson because he has a no trade clause. So you got to make sure it's a team he wants to go to. But there was a trade offer proposal, I should say, over the weekend from a reporter, not a legitimate offer from a team. But John McClain, an incredibly talented, well-sourced reporter for the Houston Chronicle, knows the Texans very, very, very well. He wrote an article over the weekend saying and suggesting that the Texans should pursue a trade with the Arizona Cardinals, try to get Kyler Murray back and them obviously trading away Deshaun Watson. A Deshaun Watson for Kyler Murray trade. Would you do that if you're the Texans and if you're the Cardinals? Facebook, Worldwide Sports Network, Twitter, WWSRN_radio, at Brian Hickey Show on Twitter. Because I would do that in a heartbeat if I'm both sides. I know, especially kind of the world we live in, it's very divisive. It's tough to kind of get on the same page. It's tough to say, you know what, yeah, both teams got a fair deal on that. Usually it's one side or the other. If there was a trade that went down for Kyler Murray and Deshaun Watson, I'm sure the Cardinals have to give maybe a little bit more. But a similar situation where the trade focuses around Kyler Murray of the Cardinals, Deshaun Watson of the Texans. I think we can easily make the argument right now. That is a win-win for both teams. That is, to me, the perfect trade partner, perfect trade opportunity for both teams. That would make a lot of sense. I think would benefit both well, and I think would honestly be the closest thing to a win-win trade the Texans and even Deshaun Watson could both agree to make. Because if you look at it from Arizona's perspective, if you make a trade for Deshaun Watson, a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, you are legitimately right now asserting yourself into the mix for not only the division next year in a very talented and tough and competitive NFC West. You are putting your case to be made why you can come out of the NFC next year. Because look what adding a top 5 quarterback could do to this offense, and this is taking nothing away from Kyler Murray. I am a big fan of Kyler Murray. But you are replacing Kyler Murray with a top 5 quarterback in the NFL right now. And replacing Kyler with Deshaun would take this offense to the next level and legitimately make this team contenders. Remember last week on Thursday, just Thursday, not even a week ago, we talked about the addition of J.J. Watt and why, to me, that didn't really do anything. That didn't really move the needle at all for the Cardinals in terms of their playoff hopes, in terms of their division hopes, in terms of their Super Bowl hopes. Let me take a line from our guest Keith Smith that just joined us a little while ago. J.J. Watt, just like how he said of Blake Griffin, is more name than game. J.J. Watt often injured. Even when he's on the field last year, production wasn't there. I don't think, to me, that's a move in the Cardinals signing J.J. Watt that propels them to guaranteed playoff team in the mix for the division. I don't really see it, honestly, changing much. In part, because Cliff Kingsbury is still the head coach. I don't trust Cliff Kingsbury to get the most out of this team and help guide Kyler Murray in this offense to not only finishing strong, something he has never done in his career with the Cardinals or with Texas Tech. So with him there, I didn't see really the opening for the Cardinals to make a legit run and be legitimate contenders. But that conversation changes when you bring in a quarterback to the caliber of Deshaun Watson. Because think about it. Deshaun Watson is a player last year that led the NFL in passing yards. He threw a career-high 33 touchdown passes. He threw a career-low 7 interceptions. He did all of that with all the turmoil in Houston to where his head coach was fired early in the year, to where heading to the year they traded away his best receiver in DeAndre Hopkins. In a year where there is fighting within the front office of who's going to gain control and make the decisions when it comes to personnel, when it comes to hiring coaches, when it comes to firing coaches. We have Jack used to be backstabbing those in the organization. There's a massive power struggle going on as Deshaun Watson's on the field, throwing for career highs in touchdown passes, career lows, interceptions. Not to mention, look at the pieces around him. The offensive line is horrendous. The receiving core is not good when you have Brandon Cooks, when you have Will Fuller, who gets popped for PEDs later in the year. And I'm even forgetting the third receiver out of that trio. That just goes to show you there's not a lot there to write home about. The supporting cast was awful. Everything going on in the organization, one massive distraction, and Deshaun Watson overcame that. So now if you put him in a situation where the owner, or I should say where the GM is not having a power struggle, to where the head coach is not working in the side to try to gain more power, where there's actual continuity and just a normal day-to-day operations going on in Arizona. Not to mention you get to pair him back up with his old friend DeAndre Hopkins, who was taken away from him, pair him back up in Houston. You add Christian Kirk to the mix, a solid secondary receiver. Chase Edmonds, Kenyon Drake are a great 1-2 punch there in the backfield. The offensive line is improving. It's getting better than I would say where it is right now in Houston. You add all of that up. You add Deshaun Watson's ability to overcome bad coaching. Because think about what he was able to do with Bill O'Brien at points, where, especially as a GM, Bill O'Brien is a horrendous GM. Horrendous. He still played well enough to overcome that. This team is legit. This Cardinals team is legit. And when you look at, the landscape of the NFC, if you can add Deshaun Watson to this offense, to this Arizona Cardinals team, the NFC is legitimately there for the taking. Let's look quick, right? Because in the NFC, as we know, it is a quarterback filled with young, burgeoning franchise quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes, obviously, with the Chiefs. Josh Allen blossoming with Buffalo. Lamar Jackson won an MVP with the Ravens. Justin Herbert starting to look better and more improved out there in Los Angeles. There is a lot of young quarterbacks on teams that are building to where the AFC is going to be very competitive for a long time because a lot of those guys aren't going anywhere. Look in the NFC. The quarterback play is not as intimidating, especially, too, it's on the older side, so you think things are going to clear out. You're not getting Deshaun Watson for 1 year. You're getting Deshaun Watson for 10 years. When you look at the landscape, the Cardinals are in position to make a legitimate run in the NFC here. Saints, right? We're one of the best teams in 2020. They're right now in quarterback limbo. Drew Brees, is he going to come back or not? We still have not heard anything about Drew Brees, whether he's going to retire or return. It is now March 8th. We thought this was going to be a 1 or 2 day thing. We'll think about it back in January when the team was eliminated. Instead, here we are 2 months later, no word yet. If he comes back, I think that severely hurts the Saints' chances in 2021. If he retires, you're going to rely on most likely Jameis Winston. If not Jameis Winston, if he goes elsewhere, Taysom Hill. So the quarterback situation, you'd have a massive advantage either way for the Cardinals over the Saints. Seahawks, as we know, drama with Russell Wilson. Will he even be on the team in 2021? Not a guarantee. And if he is, how much will he be chafed? How much will he be upset at Pete Carroll and the organization for how things went? They don't address the needs that Russell Wilson wants. Things could get ugly there, and we'll see. But I think things are in limbo right now out there in Seattle. If you look at the Packers, have they hit their ceiling? Like, if you look at Green Bay, for everything that went right in 2020, Aaron Rodgers won the MVP. They got home field advantage in the playoffs, and they still couldn't get to the Super Bowl. If they couldn't make it last year, honestly, I don't really see how they will make it again. Because everything that could have gone right for the Packers in 2020 did go right. Even with that said, even with the breaks that they got, they still fall short in the NFC title game. The NFC East is just terrible. I mean, flat out stinks. The NFC is there for the taking. Obviously, you're going to have 44-year-old Tom Brady in the Buccaneers. You're going to have Matthew Stafford, who I really like with the Rams. I think he's going to fit in really nicely. But other than that, and if you're Arizona, you look around the NFC, not many teams scare you. There's no Patrick Mahomes with the Chiefs lurking there where you feel like, you have to have a perfect game to win. There is an opportunity here to make a run, not only for the division, for the Super Bowl. And you would open up your championship window for legitimately a decade starting right now. So you make that deal for the Texans. If you make that deal for the Cardinals, you're elevating the quarterback position. And you're making a statement that you are here to play in an NFC that is transitioning. The AFC is transitioned already. It is a young man's game. It is a team. It's a league, where if you don't have a legitimate franchise quarterback, you don't have a chance. The NFC is transitioning right now. There's some of the old guard still left. Some of the new guard is not really established yet. There's a lot of teams in flux right now with decent teams, not a lot of good quarterback play. Cardinals can have a chance here to make a run. And if you're the Texans, if you're on the flip side here, is there a better player you could get back in a trade for Deshaun Watson than Kyler Murray? Here's the thing about it. If you trade Deshaun Watson, let's say, to the Jets and get the number 2 overall pick, or if you trade him to the Dolphins and get the number 3 overall pick, and plus another, a ton of other picks, right? Could we say, is Zach Wilson, is Justin Fields, is Mac Jones, whatever the Texans have their eye on in terms of young franchise quarterback going forward, if they have the top 2 or 3 pick, can we say that, they'll have more success than Kyler Murray? It's only been 2 years, but I think it's fair to say we see the trajectory that Kyler Murray is on. He has the potential to be one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Still very young, controllable contract. I think personally it's a better gamble and a little more of a known commodity. And getting a quarterback that's been there for 2 years, you see what he can do in Kyler Murray, than taking a risk in the draft because what do we just lay out? taking a quarterback in the draft is anything but a guarantee. Anything but a shoo-in. Anything, but a guarantee. So would you rather have a known commodity, if you will, or have an idea of what you're going to get in Kyler Murray, or you're going to basically, that's what the draft has turned into of late, basically. Close your eyes, go into the hat, pick out a name, and hope you get lucky. That's what's going to happen. And also, let's not forget, we talked about, what help makes quarterbacks either, make it or break it in this league and what leads to their success. You look at the Texans team and their roster, it is god awful. Awful. It stinks. So whatever quarterback you bring in there, they're going to have a bad offensive line. They're going to have bad receiving cores. They're going to have a bad running back. So at least a guy who's been established in the league a little bit hasn't, will at least allow you to have a little bit more success than trying to throw a rookie in there and try to have him succeed with crap all around him. So if I'm the Texans, this is the best return you possibly could get. It's better than Tua. It's better than Sam Darnold and the number 2 overall pick. It is better than what Carolina can offer you. Even if you're getting Christian McCaffrey, still rather have a younger quarterback than young running back. Like this, to me, when we talk about a win-win situation, this is a win-win situation. There's no better draft capital and trade package you're going to get, even if you get 10 first-round picks if you're Houston. There's no guarantee that you can get anywhere sort of the same value that you could get back in Kyler Murray compared to any other draft, assets and any other trade package you get from, again, the Jets, the Dolphins, the Panthers, the Bears, whatever team that wants to make a move and Deshaun Watson agrees to go to a trade to. So when you look at a Kyler Murray for Deshaun Watson trade, I am in on both sides. If I'm a Cardinals fan, I'm in. If I'm a Texans fan, I'm in. Not that you're willing to trade Deshaun Watson if you're a Texans fan, but at this point, there's no real choice. I think this is one of the few win-win trades that could actually be out there and could be available if you're the Texans. I think this is a spot that Deshaun Watson would say yes to. I think it's a chance for him to win, get reunited with his old pal. Obviously, now you have J.J. Watt and DeAndre Hopkins down there in Arizona. That's some familiarity. You get to make yourself a contender if you're the Cardinals right away. This is nothing against Kyler Murray. I really like Kyler Murray. But he is still developing. He's still trying to get his legs there. And as we've seen with some of the veterans on the team, you bring in J.J. Watt, you have Chandler Jones. Like, this is also not a team that is building, let's say like the Panthers are, where they're still very young. The core of the team is young. This is a team that, is built to win now. They don't have 2 or 3 years to kind of develop to where Kyler Murray maybe could become one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL for them to be like, all right, now we're ready to go contend. This is a trade that, to me at least, would really set the Cardinals over the edge and make them a legitimate contender for the NFC, for the Super Bowl. And again, get you the most value back you possibly could get if you're the Texans. So I'm curious your thoughts. Facebook, Worldwide Sports Network. Twitter, WWSR_radio. You want to comment on the live stream on Periscope, tweet me at Ryan Hickey Show on Twitter as well. Would a Deshaun Watson for Kyler Murray trade work on both sides? Would you say yes if you're the Cardinals, if you're the Texans? You can pick whatever side you want. Are you doing that trade? Does it make the most sense for both teams to say, yes, let's do it? So get your thoughts, and when we come back, we'll finish off where we started the show. Is it time for the endings in the NBA, the way that the end of the game occurs? Is it time for a change? Tell you my thoughts. Keith Smith also weighed in. I'll give you his thoughts as well as we wrap up here on the Ryan Hickey Show right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Welcome back to the Ryan Hickey Show, right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
And welcome on back into the Ryan Hickey Show with you right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. A few more minutes here as we go to the top of the hour, 11 a.m. Eastern. As a reminder, We're here every Monday, every Thursday, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern on Facebook, Worldwide Sports Radio Network, on Twitter, WWSRN_radio, also on Twitch, WWSRN_radio, YouTube, Worldwide Sports Radio Network, and also, most importantly, our app, WWSRN on iOS, Worldwide Sports Radio Network on Android. Download the app. There you get an alert anytime a show goes live. You don't miss the incredible content we have on a night in, night out basis, 5 days a week, both days on the weekend. Any interest you have, MMA, hockey, gambling, basketball, baseball, football. It is all over the Worldwide Sports Network. That's why download the app, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. That way you get in tune, stay up to date with everything that goes on near the Worldwide Sports Network, and you stay up to date and don't miss all the incredible content that you would like, that we try to provide to you every single day. So we started the show, at least in case you missed it, top of the 9 a.m. hour, kind of reacting to the NBA All-Star game last night, and one change that was a part of the game this year and part of the game last year that I think the NBA should adopt full-time. And I'm saying in the regular season, in the playoffs, any meaningful game, college basketball do the same thing as well. And that is the Elam ending. The All-Star game did it this year. They did it last year. If you're unaware, how the Elam ending works is that the first 3 quarters of the game are played just like normal. The clock is there. We have quarters, timeouts, halftime, the whole jazz. But either, depending on how the variation would be, either the entire fourth quarter or once you reach a certain, 5 minutes left or 4 minutes left, the clock is taken out and instead a target score is given. Let's say the score is 100-90. My team is beating your team. All right, so let's say there's 4 minutes left. The target score, let's say, is we're going to add 20 points to the winning team's, or whoever, the winning team's score right now. That's going to be the target score. So if it's 190, the target score is going to be 120. First one to 120 wins. So obviously, as the winning team, I have to score 20 points. If you're losing, you're down 190. You got to score 30 points. But there's no clock. So you can take all the time in the world in theory in terms of, you can get stops. You don't have to worry about time eclipsing your chance of a comeback. And what this does in my mind is at least it promotes good basketball. It promotes good offense getting run. Right? Because how you win is by scoring, not by running out the clock, not by dribbling out the clock, but it is by scoring buckets. So getting good looks, getting open threes, knocking down your shots is how you win. Playing good defense, because if you're the team losing, you don't have to worry about, the other team running out the clock, because instead you can just focus on getting good stops on defense, pursuing hard, coming off the screens, intensity that sometimes is lacking in NBA games. So it promotes good offense, it promotes good defense, and to me, at least in my mind, what it does more than ever, it takes away the worst part about basketball games. College is more egregious than the pros, for sure. But even still, the last 2 minutes, 90 seconds, minute, 30 seconds, the thing I hate the most about basketball is the fouling, the free throw shooting, and just the constant grind that comes, of a game with a good flow, with good intensity that comes to a halt the final few seconds in the most important moments, because teams are fouling, trying to get to the foul line to stop the clock, to give themselves a chance to come back, down by 4, down by 5, down by 7. Teams foul at different times. But seeing the monotony of fouling, free throws, timeout, we got to drop an inbounds play, move, advance the ball to the front court if you're in the NBA, have the inbounds play get run. Then, make or miss, then all of a sudden we're going to be calling another timeout. How do we, defend the inbounds pass? Then it's boom, we got to foul again. It is a constant grind that to me is just not entertaining the last few minutes of the game, because all it is just stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. When you get a good flow going, when you get a nice momentum shift going here in the NBA or in any kind of basketball, it's enjoyable to watch. So now with no time on the clock, or not, I should say not a clock to stop, the fouling's out the window. You're not fouling a team if you're down by 5, because guess what? Foul shots only get them closer to their goal. Instead, it's worried about playing good defense. So now it's not about putting guys on the line. It's about getting stops. Which, doesn't that promote good basketball? Doesn't that make the game more enjoyable? To me, the answer is yeah. That's, to me, why I think the NBA should adopt the Elam ending full-time. For every regular season game, postseason game, exhibition game, college basketball game, every basketball league in my mind should adopt it because it promotes the best part about the games. It lets the players decide the game on the court with their strengths, with their shooting, with their ability to play good defense, passing. It just promotes, to me, accentuates the strengths of these players on the court. Again, instead of making it, a free throw competition towards the end, instead of bogging down, any sort of rhythm and flow to the game. And instead, it's all about free throw shooting and inbounds passes and timeouts. To me, personally, it's just not enjoyable. So now we've seen it for the second year in a row. I think it works. I think it's fun. Again, even in the All-Star game, I think it works well. It adds more excitement to the game because, again, there's no clock killing. We're not dribbling out the clock. We're not sitting here, just taking our time on offense, really not caring because guess what? As long as the clock runs down, we're good. No. It promotes scoring because even if you're up by 20, well, the quicker you score, the quicker the game's over. So even in a blowout game, it still promotes running sets. It still promotes getting good shots and getting good looks and pushing these guys to still play the best possible for the whole time of the game because, again, it doesn't end until they determine it ends. So I think it would be perfect. We had on Keith Smith, tremendously talented NBA reporter, an hour ago. He disagreed. He thinks free throw shooting is a part of the game. He doesn't want to change too much from how the game is with the history. I think it'd be good, personally, for the NBA. I think change sometimes is necessary. I think change sometimes just for the sake of change's sake is not good, but I think this could be a legitimate beneficial option for the NBA that make the game better and more enjoyable. It's all about, as we know now, we hear, it's all about catering to the younger generation. The NBA has done that better than any other sports league, better than the NFL, better than Major League Baseball, better than hockey. Well, I think another way to cater to the younger crowd, to make the game more exciting for the full time, is by, again, eliminating the clock the last 4 minutes, maybe the entire fourth quarter, whatever the NBA decides to do. I think that will help promote good basketball and more good basketball being played. Cuts out some of the worst parts of the game and cuts out some of the most boring parts of the game to where the last 2 minutes in some cases could take 20 minutes. I think it adds more excitement, which is, that's good for anything, right? Would you rather have more excitement or less excitement? I don't think anyone's going to say, yeah, I'd rather be less excited by a game. I'd rather have the game be more boring. That movie we just saw, I wish it was less exciting. No one's ever said that. So why not bring that same mentality to the game of basketball by eliminating the least exciting part of the game? Promote good basketball, push good basketball, not less. Beth writes on Twitter, she agrees. She goes, how would that affect aggressive fouling in the last 2 minutes? It would eliminate it. It would eliminate all of the foul, the aggressive fouling. It would eliminate the hack-a-shack. Because, again, when there's a target score, when there's a number to reach, fouling would only get the team that's winning closer to that goal, right? So if you're losing by 5, and let's say, the winning team needs only 3 points to win, fouling them would just get them closer to winning the game. So there's no reason to foul. Instead, promotes playing hard, tough defense, trying to get a stop, and then trying to run the offense after that. So to me, at least, again, coming out of the All-Star game last night, I think the Elam ending, implementing it full-time in the NBA would be a massive boost for the sport. I think it would go over very well for fans, for players alike. Again, for those of you who hate change, you'll probably hate it. But I think it's a necessary step that, again, would just add more excitement, promote these players better, and make the game more exciting. Which, again, who doesn't want more excitement? Find me the one person, and maybe I'll say I'm wrong, but everyone wants some more excitement. I think this rule would bring that out. So we'll see. There's really been no true talk. If this was to happen, it's still extremely, extremely far down the road. But I think it would be a very good thing for the sport. I think it would be a very fun ending. I think the NBA legitimately needs to consider. They're not afraid to change. They're not afraid of change. I think this would be a good change going forward that really would promote the sport, accentuate the strengths, and cut out the fat, trim the fat. Here's what you want. So that'll do it for this edition of the Ryan Hickey Show right here on the Worldwide Sports Network. Appreciate you making us part of your Monday morning. Hopefully we made it a little more enjoyable, a little more entertaining, a little more exciting. That's what we're here. We're trying to give you more excitement, trying to make the morning a little more entertaining, just like this Elam ending would do to the game of basketball. So have a great rest of your week. Stay safe, stay sane, enjoy the nice weather. If you, especially here in the Northeast, that's coming in the next few days. And we'll talk to you on Thursday morning right here on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.
It's the Worldwide Sports Radio Network.